I don't know if I stepped forward first, or if she let the silence pull me in. All I remember is the sound of her voice, low and steady, as if she was trying not to tremble. You shouldn't be here. The hallway light caught her face at an angle, softening the lines that told stories of years I hadn't lived yet. She stood there in a loose sweater, sleeves falling past her wrists, and it made her seem both untouchable and suddenly human. I should have left. Anyone else would have left. But the door was open, and she hadn't closed it. "But you opened the door," I said, and it sounded weaker than it did in my head. Her eyes lingered on me longer than necessary. They were sharp, but beneath the sharpness was something else, something I couldn't name yet. I stepped inside. Not far. Just enough to feel the warmth of her apartment against the cold draft from the corridor. She didn't move, not right away. She just folded her arms slowly, as if bracing herself, though she didn't send me back out either. I noticed the small things first. The faint scent of coffee left cooling on the counter, the thin hum of the refrigerator, the way one strand of hair kept falling across her cheek, no matter how often she brushed it back. The space felt like her, carefully arranged, but not perfect. Like she'd been alone long enough to stop pretending for anyone else. My throat was dry, but I spoke anyway. "I don't mean to bother you. I just couldn't walk past." Her mouth curved, but not into a smile. More like a flicker of disbelief. "Do you even hear yourself?" I nodded, too quickly. "Yeah, I do. That's the problem." Her eyes searched me, sharp again, and I could feel myself shrinking under them. But then her gaze dropped, just for a moment, to my hand resting awkwardly at my side. When her eyes came back up, they softened. "You're too young for this," she murmured, almost to herself. The words stung, but not the way she intended. They hung in the air like a truth neither of us wanted to admit. I should have laughed it off, should have agreed, but instead I said nothing. Silence pressed in, and then, without thinking, I shifted slightly, close enough that when she moved to tuck that strand of hair behind her ear, her fingers brushed against the back of my hand. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't deliberate, but my skin burned like it was. She froze, just for a second, but I noticed the way her lips parted, how her breath caught before she pulled her hand away. The air between us grew heavy. The kind of heavy that made every sound louder. The ticking clock on her wall, the faint echo of footsteps in the stairwell outside, the unsteady rhythm of my own breathing. Her sweater slipped slightly off one shoulder, and she pulled it back up too quickly, almost flustered. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but the words tangled in my throat. Instead, I just looked at her, really looked at her. The curve of her jaw, the way her eyes avoided mine but never fully left them, the tired grace of someone who had lived more than I had but still wasn't finished. She noticed. She had to. Because finally, she said, almost in a whisper, "You can't stay." But she didn't move to close the door. I shifted my weight, torn between leaving and stepping closer. My pulse quickened with the thought that if I leaned just a little more, I could smell her perfume properly, feel the warmth of her shoulder brushing mine. And then, suddenly, the door behind me rattled. A knock. Sharp, unexpected. Her eyes widened, darting past me toward the sound. Neither of us moved. The knock faded, leaving only the weight of our breathing. She exhaled first, a sharp sound that broke the stillness. "You should go," she said, though her voice was softer now. I didn't move. My hand hovered near the door, but something in me resisted. "Is someone?" "No, too quick, too certain." She ran a hand through her hair, hiding her eyes. "Just, people get curious. This building doesn't stay quiet for long." Her words sounded practical, but the way she gripped her sweater at the wrist gave her away. I shifted slightly, closer to the counter where the coffee cup still sat. Half full, untouched for too long. "You were expecting someone?" A faint laugh escaped her, dry and bitter. "Not anymore." She leaned against the wall, crossing her arms again, the defensive pose she seemed to fall back into. "I used to. Years ago, this door opened for someone else." "Not anymore." I wanted to ask, but something in her expression warned me off. Instead, I let the silence stretch, filling in the blanks myself. Some man who didn't stay, some trust that had dried up long before I got here. She noticed me watching her too closely. "What about you?" I blinked. "Me? You can't have lived much yet." "Not really." The edge in her voice was strange, not cruel, but cautious, as if she was afraid of what my answer might mean. I shrugged, my throat dry. I tried. Once. But it didn't last. I hesitated, then added. She said I was too serious. Like I wanted something more than she could give. Her head tilted, eyes narrowing, as though weighing whether she believed me. Too serious at your age. Imagine that. Her words should have cut, but the way she said them, low, almost wistful, made it sound less like a judgment and more like a memory of herself. The room went still again. I shifted, brushing against the counter, and she moved instinctively closer to pass me. The space was too narrow. Her shoulder grazed mine, light, unintentional, but enough to make every nerve in me jolt awake. She noticed. I knew because she paused, too long, before continuing past. I turned slightly, and for a breath, her face was just inches from mine. I caught it. The faint trace of perfume clinging to her collar, the warmth of her breath as she exhaled. She looked away first. This is wrong. Then why does it feel right? The words slipped out before I could catch them. Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, her hand moved, almost absently, and brushed my shoulder as she passed behind me. It lingered, not long enough to be deliberate, but not quick enough to be dismissed. My pulse hammered. I turned to face her, but she'd already put a step of distance between us. Still, when she finally looked back at me, the softness in her eyes betrayed her. It wasn't anger. It wasn't dismissal. It was recognition. The silence between us had grown unbearable. Every shift, every breath seemed louder in that small apartment. Then her phone buzzed. The sound startled us both. She snatched it from the table too quickly, turning the screen away from me. A name flashed, too fast for me to catch. She pressed the phone to her chest, exhaling sharply. It's nothing, she said, but her voice cracked on the last syllable. I stepped closer before I realized I had. Someone who matters? Her eyes flicked up, sharp, defensive. Not anymore. Then softer, almost ashamed. Or maybe they still think they do. The air tightened between us. Her sweater sleeve brushed my arm as she turned slightly, and I didn't step back. Neither did she. We were too close now. I could see the small details, the faint crease between her brows, the way her lashes trembled when she tried not to blink too long. I wanted to touch her face, to trace that line of tension and smooth it away, but my hand stayed locked at my side. You should leave before, she began. Before what? Before someone saw? Before we crossed the line already blurring? She didn't finish the sentence, and maybe that was worse. Her phone buzzed again in her palm. She silenced it without looking. The choice was deliberate, almost reckless. Why are you here, really? She asked, barely above a whisper. The question burned through me. Because when you look at me, it doesn't feel like I'm too young. It feels like I'm enough. She inhaled sharply, as if the words cut her open. Her hand lifted, hesitant, shaking, and brushed my chest lightly, fingertips pressing against the fabric of my shirt. Not long, not steady, just enough to leave me dizzy. I leaned in. Not fully, just enough that her breath ghosted across my lips. Her eyes flicked down, then back up, wide with something raw. The door rattled again, this time a jangle of keys in the hall. Someone else. A neighbor. My heart lurched. She stiffened, her hand snapping back. We both froze, listening. Footsteps paused outside, then retreated. A door clicked shut down the hall. The danger had passed, but the moment had already shifted. She pressed her hand to her forehead, muttering, "This is insane." I wanted to argue, but the words tangled in my throat. Instead, I reached, lightly, touching her wrist before she could fold her arms again. Her pulse thudded beneath my fingers, quick, betraying her calm facade. She didn't pull away. Not this time. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a long, suspended second, it felt inevitable that if either of us leaned just an inch more, the space between us would vanish. But she drew in a trembling breath, steadying herself. We can't. Her voice said no, but the way her hand stayed in mine said everything else. Her hand still rested in mine, fragile and trembling, as if one wrong move would send it all shattering. You can't do this, she whispered, her voice unsteady. You can't want me like that. I swallowed hard. But I do. Her eyes flicked to the floor, then back to me, desperate, conflicted. You'll regret it. People always regret it. I stepped closer, closing the inch of space between us. My chest almost brushed hers, and the faintest warmth of her body reached me. I lowered my voice, steady, deliberate. Not this. Not you. Her breath caught. She tried to step back, but the counter was behind her. My hand lifted, hesitant at first, then brushed a strand of hair away from her cheek. The soft strand slid through my fingers, warm, electric, and when she didn't flinch, my thumb lingered just above her jaw. Her lips parted. No words came. I leaned in, my forehead almost touching hers. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Instead, she whispered, almost breaking, "I haven't let anyone this close in years." The confession hit me like a blow. All her walls, her careful distance, it wasn't indifference. It was fear. I cupped her face more firmly, and she leaned into it for the briefest second, betraying herself. Her body pressed lightly against mine, her breath trembling against my throat. "I can't," she started, but her voice faltered. My hand slid down, resting at her waist, the thin fabric of her sweater doing nothing to hide the shape beneath. Her fingers curled into my shirt, clutching, not pushing me away, but holding me there. "Say it." I breathed near her ear, my voice rough. "If you want me to stop, say it." She didn't. She tilted her face upward instead, her eyes dark, wide, pulling me in. Every detail burned into me. The faint taste of coffee still on her breath, the delicate line of her collarbone, the way her pulse thundered against her skin. We were right there. Inches. My lips hovered over hers, and the world went silent. And then, her voice broke the spell, raw and trembling. "If you kiss me, everything changes." Her words froze me, but her grip on my shirt only tightened. Her body leaned against mine fully now, as though her mouth said no, but her silence begged otherwise. I whispered back, my lips brushing the edge of her cheek. "Then let it change." She shut her eyes, surrender flickering across her face. Our mouths were a breath apart, and just as I closed the distance, a knock thundered on the door. This time, louder, urgent. Her eyes flew open, panic flashing. Neither of us moved. The moment, half-born, unstoppable, hung in the air, trembling on the edge of becoming. The knock didn't fade this time. It came again, sharp, demanding. She pressed a finger to her lips, eyes wide, and slipped past me to the door. Her sweater brushed my arm as she passed, too quick, too charged, and the warmth of her lingered even as she pulled away. Through the peephole, she froze. Her hand tightened on the knob, then dropped. She whispered, more to herself than me. "Not now." "Not him." "Who is it?" I asked, my voice low. She didn't answer. Another knock, followed by a voice. Male, steady, familiar. "Are you home?" I saw the light. Her shoulders tensed, every line of her body rigid. She mouthed something I almost didn't catch. "Don't speak." The man outside called again, softer now, almost concerned. "It's late. Just checking." She stood there, unmoving, until his footsteps finally retreated down the hall. Only then did she step back, pressing her forehead against the door. Her breath shuddered out of her, and when she turned, her eyes found mine with something rawer than fear. "You shouldn't have been here," she said again, but this time it wasn't a warning. It was a confession. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. "Who was that?" Her jaw tightened. "A mistake." The answer didn't satisfy, and my silence demanded more. She finally sighed, rubbing at her temple. "He's someone who thinks I owe him. Someone I let close once. Too close. And now he watches." Her voice trembled. "And if he saw you here," her words broke off. She pressed a hand to her chest, as if holding herself together. I wanted to reach for her, but instead I clenched my fists at my sides. "So he thinks you're his." Her eyes snapped to mine, sharp, almost angry. "No, not his. Never his. But people don't always care about truth." Her body betrayed her words. She was shaking, not from anger but from the weight of being cornered. And then, when she moved past me, her arm brushed mine deliberately this time, slow, lingering. The contact stole my breath. "You don't understand," she whispered, stopping just behind me. "You walk in here, and you make me remember what it's like to be wanted, and I can't afford that." Her voice cracked on wanted. I turned, catching her hand before she could retreat again. Her pulse hammered beneath my grip. She didn't pull away. "Then stop pretending," I said quietly. She blinked, caught between fury and longing. And then, finally, she let the mask slip. Her fingers curled against mine, pulling me just a little closer. Her body trembled, not from fear anymore, but from surrender fighting with restraint. "If we keep going," she breathed, her lips dangerously near mine, It won't stop. Then don't stop. Her breath hitched, her forehead leaning into mine, fragile and inevitable all at once. The decision was no longer if. It was when. Her forehead rested against mine, both of us suspended in a silence that felt like it could tear the room apart. My hand held hers, firm, unwilling to let go. Her breath was shallow, each exhale brushing my lips, daring me to close the distance. I should let you go, she whispered. Then why don't you? My voice was low, rougher than I meant it to be. Her eyes opened slowly, meeting mine with unbearable honesty. Because I don't want to. The words hit harder than any touch. My chest tightened, and before I could think, my free hand lifted, sliding to her cheek. Her skin was warm beneath my palm, trembling just enough that I knew she was fighting herself. Tell me to stop, I whispered, giving her the last out. She didn't. Instead, she leaned into my touch, her body tilting into mine as if gravity itself had chosen for her. The faint brush of her sweater against my arm sent heat flooding through me, and the air between us vanished until I could feel her breath mix with mine. You're going to regret this, she murmured, even as her hands curled into my shirt, pulling me closer. Then I'll regret it, I breathed. The moment broke open. Our lips met, not in certainty, but in desperation. Her kiss was hesitant at first, trembling, then suddenly fierce, as if years of restraint had cracked all at once. My hands framed her face, hers pressed into my chest, and for a suspended heartbeat, nothing else existed. She pulled back suddenly, gasping, her eyes wide with both fear and fire. This isn't supposed to happen. It already did. She stared at me, torn apart by the truth of it. Then she pressed her forehead against mine again, whispering, You don't understand what this means. Then explain it to me, I said. Her hands shook as they slid down my chest, stopping at my waist before falling away. She stepped back, just one step, but the loss of her warmth was immediate, unbearable. It means I'll stop being careful. And if I stop, her voice broke. I don't know if I can put myself back together again. I stepped into that single step of distance, refusing to let it grow. Then don't. Let it fall apart. With me. Her eyes shimmered, searching mine for hesitation, for some hint that I didn't mean it. But all she found was the same truth pulling at her. We had already crossed the line. Slowly, painfully, she exhaled. You're not letting me go, are you? I shook my head, my thumb brushing across her lips. Not now? Not ever. Her answer wasn't in words this time. She leaned in, closing the distance once more, kissing me with the weight of surrender. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, trembling, raw, but it was real. And when we broke apart, her eyes held mine with something clear, undeniable. We understand each other now, she whispered. The kiss lingered in the air long after it ended, our breathing uneven, our hands still searching for each other like neither of us trusted the silence. She leaned back just enough to look at me, her lips parted, her eyes carrying that familiar storm. Fear, longing, disbelief. This isn't simple, she said softly. I shook my head. No, but neither is pretending. Her shoulders sagged, some of the fight draining out of her. She reached for the counter to steady herself, but my hand caught hers before she could. I threaded my fingers through hers slowly, carefully, as though the gesture might break her resolve. She didn't pull away. Instead, her hand tightened around mine with a trembling certainty. The room was quiet except for us. The clock ticked, the refrigerator hummed, but everything felt suspended, like the world outside had stopped pressing in. You're too young, she whispered again, though her voice lacked conviction this time. I smiled faintly, leaning just close enough that my forehead brushed hers. And you're too much for me. So maybe we're even. Her laugh was soft, broken, but real. She pressed her other hand against my chest, not to push me away but to feel the rhythm of my heartbeat beneath her palm. It steadied her. It steadied me too. She sighed. Do you know what people will say? Yes, I murmured. But they're not the ones who have to feel this. Her eyes closed, her breath shaky, and then she let herself lean into me fully. Her head rested against my shoulder, her body softening at last. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her as though I'd been waiting my whole life for this moment. The nearness was grounding, her warmth pressed to mine, the faint scent of her hair, the weight of her trust finally settling into me. For the first time since I'd stepped through her door, she wasn't pulling back. We stood there in the hush of her apartment, two people who shouldn't have fit, but somehow did. When she finally tilted her face up again, she didn't speak. She just pressed her lips to my forehead, a quiet, trembling kiss that said more than words could. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't rushed. It was a choice. I held her closer, whispering, "So, are we done pretending?" Her smile ghosted against my skin. We never were any good at it. And that was it. The doubts didn't vanish. The fears didn't magically dissolve. But we were there, together, with nothing left between us except honesty. Her hand remained in mine, her body against me. And in that fragile, imperfect stillness, we both knew it was real. Not easy, not safe, but real. And for both of us, that was enough.